Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the live-action Avatar: The Last Airbender, Season 1, Episode 2. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're picking up in the aftermath of last episode. Let's kind of start off with Zuko's side of things. Obviously, he's frustrated because his book is gone, and Iroh's like, right. Yeah, that gave you background on the avatars because the more he knew about the avatars, he figured they would help him understand things more. But it's like, right, the avatar, Iroh tries to explain to him, you found the avatar on your own. Yeah, the book might have helped, but all it did was give you background information. You on your own follow the signs, follow the information, and that led you to the avatar. But for him, it's like he ran away. He's not some warrior. He ran away. He was a coward. It's like, yeah, but the avatar's not, he was like, I wouldn't go that far. It's just the avatar isn't what any of us thought he would be, because once again, Aang is the youngest person to become the avatar that we're kind of aware of, and his circumstances are very unique amongst the other avatars. And so it ends up being this situation where Iroh, I think especially with his brief conversation with Aang last episode, he's kind of seeing like, right, there's a little bit more to this. There's a lot more complexities to this situation. It might be more to the Avatar that we don't know. Zuko doesn't care about like, oh, the Avatar was frozen from her. I don't care. All I care about is finding him and retrieving. Because it's like, I had it within my grasp. And that ends up being this powerful conversation between Iroh and Zuko. Iroh telling him like, that's the cruelty of hope. Because for him, it's like, for Zuko, it's like, I never thought it was possible. Like, I actually began to believe it was going to be impossible to ever redeem myself in my father's eyes and be able to return home with my honor intact. But the problem is, I finally have hope, and it slipped through my fingers. You know, now, me thinking, like, me trying to fool myself and believing, like, well, it's out, the avatar's out there, I'll find a way. Knowing and believing are two different things. He knows the avatar is out there now. He had the avatar in his grasp and slipped away. So it's sad knowing like not only like some ethereal belief you could ever go back home is being out there versus I know my road to redemption, my road to honor, my road to my father's love. The road to my father's love is out there, and I just need to grasp it, and it just keeps slipping through my fingers. So that ends up being, you know, a rough thing for Zuko because, you know, playing into the fire bender element of being hot-headed, Zuko is one of the most hot-headed characters you'll find because he's just, because of that determination, he wants, and this ends up being this beautiful parallel between both him and Aang. They kind of both want shortcuts. They want things easy, you know? But that's also kind of playing into the notion for Iroh. It's like, right, you've waited 3 years to find the avatar. What's a little bit longer, you know? But it kind of plays into Aang kind of wanting things to be easy. He wants there to be an easy solution to this, and it's not an easy solution. But we'll get to that when we swing over. But they end up running into to a like depot, like a place, a command center of sorts, and they end up talking to Commander Zhao, played by Ken Leung, which obviously it's like he's one of those actors, you've seen him in so many things. Can't remember if it was the first. It's one of the Rush Hour movies. I want to say it's the first one where he's the main bad guy. He was in Lost, which is funny too, considering like we get our like first appearance of the Fire Lord, present day Fire Lord, played by Daniel Day Kim, who obviously is kind of best known from Lost as well. So just interesting, connected that wise. But they're trying to give as much limited information as possible. Once again, it's just like Iroh being like, oh, we should get this food. This is it's a quail egg type of thing. Oh, and it's good for vitality. See, yeah, and he's trying to teach. Trying to teach Zuko how to be patient and how to approach a situation, asking for help and taking advantage of help while not giving away your true intentions. And he tried to do that with Zhao, but Zhao was like, why would the Prince of the Fire Nation be here? It's like, I know of your circumstances, I know of your mission. There's got to be some reason why you're here. Along with Iroh, who we learned is like, what was it, the dragon, was it the west or the east? So, which I love that if you just get a little peek at Iroh, he just kind of almost like, yeah, whatever, and kind of moves along. It's like, let's not get too caught up in the past. Let's not worry about me. This is, we're tracking like some type of fish and stuff like that. He's not making a big deal of it. But I think probably across the Fire Nation, everyone knows why Zuko's out here, what his mission was. Because even Zhao was like, whoa. There's reports of like, that's what, well, they didn't, well, no. Actually, I have to take that back. It's Prince Zuko's appearance there. People probably know about him being banished, but they don't know why. But then you find out, like, the only reason why Zhao knows about the Avatar, I forgot, one of his men talked to one of Zuko's crew, and it turns out that's why they're out there, is looking for the Avatar. So that's the only reason why he found us. So the general thing is people know he's probably banished, but they don't know what his mission is to get redeemed. They just think he's out and about. But it's like, right, when the Prince of the Fire Nation shows up, it's like, why are you here really? Like, is it really about some fish or something? So it kind of screwed the pooch on their secret plan, because Zhao found out about what this might have all been about. So he ended up tracking down the Avatar and them to Kyoshi Island. We'll get to that soon enough. But switching gears over to Aang and the team. In the aftermath of last episode, looking at Zuko's journal, they end up finding out about the Avatar state. And one of the places they could learn more about it is Kyoshi Island, which obviously worships, and it's kind of... I don't know if that was necessary. I guess it was her home, Kyoshi's home at one point in time, but obviously, like, she's revered there. So that's going to be their next stop. Sokka's saying, like, cool, we saved the brat, we saved the kid, let's go home. But for Katara, it's like, no, this is an opportunity that not only can we be a part of saving the world, like, Aang is so important, so we have to help him on this journey. Plus, for her, it's like, I'm in the process of learning this waterbending situation. Like, this is my role in all of this. And Sokka's like, no, we need to go back home. You know, he was quick to just kind of want to give up on this journey because he has his duty, because he made his promise to look after the village, and it's like not to go on some wild adventure. Saving the world is such a astronomical thing that is like, what role can we play? Like, what role can this kid play in saving the world, even if he is the Avatar? Because being around him is dangerous. But it's like, yeah, that's why we got to go on this journey to help Aang understand and control his powers. Which that in itself ended up being a really interesting conversation for Aang, that he's never had to train, because he's always been really exceptional. Once again, that's why he became a master of airbending at such a young age. But it's always been about trying to control his power, and he knows that other people were scared of him. And he's like, I saw that same look in yours and Sokka's face when I went into that Avatar state. It's the fear of that power, a power you don't understand, a power you don't fully comprehend, which you also take that in conjunction with the fact is you don't fully understand yourself. I mean, you're 12. Like, what do you know about yourself or the world, especially a world you don't know anything about? A world that's 100 years from your time, that so much has changed. People have changed. The way they go about things have changed. He talked about it previously, and it comes up in this episode too, that obviously so many groups used to talk. He even talked about last episode. I don't know if they really touched on that ever really too much in the show, the animated series, about how he had friends from the Fire Nation. I don't remember that. I know one of his best buds, obviously it's paramount to the show, but I don't really remember them talking too much about his connection to the Fire Nation. I don't remember that at all. I mean, to be fair, I don't think he really knew anyone from the Water Tribe either. Like, Katara and Sokka was like his first introduction to the Water Tribe. But he has connections to some, but they never... I don't think there was ever any connection directly into his personal life to the Water Nation. That was the first time I'd ever heard about him potentially having friends in the Fire Nation. I was like, interesting. Maybe that was something and I just don't remember. There were a lot of like side episodes, because this show isn't going to encompass every story beat. They're going to cover the main plot and kind of lean out the show, just because for the purposes of, in an animated series that's like 20 some minutes an episode, you have the freedom to kind of have these wacky adventure side episodes that are very like character driven and not necessarily moving the overarching plot forward. This show's all about plot, right? So, and as well as mixing in into character development, obviously. So I don't know if that's something that was explored and I just don't remember. I just caught that last episode, I completely forgot to talk about it, but I was like, him having friends from the Fire Nation is interesting. Once again, you're having a friend outside of the Airbenders. I know about that particular friend, but I didn't remember him having a friend in like the Fire Nation, or friends in the Fire Nation. I thought that was interesting. But I guess maybe that's a little line of dialogue the people doing the Netflix adaptation like added in. I don't know. Either way, I went on this massive tangent. I do apologize. But Oh, we also met Momo this episode too, which is pretty dope. Um, I think it was pretty just like matter of fact Momo joining the crew, even in the original animated series. I don't think there was like a big thing about it, but it's just like, yeah, you got Momo on your side. That's just kind of what it is. Um, I feel like I do feel like I remember Sokka and Momo like always kind of butting heads a little bit. Um, because I know like obviously in the original series like Sokka did serve as like the comic relief in a lot of ways because he would kind of be like the idiot sometimes in certain regards. But obviously we get it a little bit this episode too when they do make their way to Kyoshi Island. And I love the whole thing of wait, like he's claiming to be the Avatar. If he was the Avatar, there'd be a sign and then literally light shine from the eyes of the statue. It's like later on Suki's mom is like, no, that doesn't mean anything. It's like, I don't know, that's a pretty random and weird sign to happen at the time. It's like, oh, I guess that was a sign. So but yeah, like the people on Kyoshi Island, very much like everyone, is separate. But Kyoshi Island in particular is very much like, hey, we stay in our lane. We don't bother anyone else. We don't even accept outsiders. So we don't want the trouble you'll bring. I mean, if you even end up being the Avatar, which there's no guarantee, but outsiders can draw more attention. But Aang talks about the fact is, I understand like your reluctance. I've been saying I don't belong. He's like, I've felt like that before. I've been feeling that a lot lately, that I don't belong. Like there's so much in this world, there's so much I don't understand. But I remember a time when like people could rely on each other and be there for each other. And maybe it can be that way again. If I can learn how to control my powers and be the Avatar, maybe I can bridge the gap to bring a little bit of the time I was from to this world, and maybe we can all kind of come together. That's his role as the Avatar. And so Suki's mom gives him 48 hours to stay here to learn all they need to learn, but not the easiest thing because you learn a little background about Kyoshi, which I didn't remember that, about her being an orphan, growing up as kind of like the maid in the house, and eventually just it's like how she go from that to the powerful warrior that she ended up becoming. At the same time, Sokka and Yuki had their moment, which is like, "Hey, you're a warrior. I'm a warrior." It's like, "Yeah, I'm a village's guardian." It's like, "You, a village guardian?" It's like, well, yeah, And she's like, basically going in about how, like, their circumstances as Kyoshi warriors we're not just warriors, we're Kyoshi warriors, and just kind of like left Sokka dumbfounded because it's like, wait, you're supposed to be your village protector, so are you protecting didn't you abandon? He's like, no, well, yes. He's like, what was it you said? Protecting Aang means like protecting the world, protecting the village. Poor Sokka, but he's just so flabbergasted and dumbfounded when it comes to Kyoshi. And I love the whole bit of her just like constantly popping up. It's like, can someone put a bell on you? Why are you just sneaking up on me repeatedly? And it kind of almost had a little spoilerish. It kind of was like because it reminded me of it, because obviously it's like I've had it on my mind a lot, is Blue Eye Samurai, the moment between Sokka and Suki. I won't get to specifics, but there's a thing in Blue Eye Samurai that kind of had a similar thing. And once again, this is definitely playing into the original animated series, because Sokka was he was okay when it came to being a warrior, but obviously Suki was obviously the more dedicated and more trained person. I believe, like, wasn't there a bit in the animated series where he had to dress up as like a Kyoshi warrior? I don't remember if he had to hide himself as a Kyoshi warrior, like when the Fire Nation showed up in this episode. I don't remember. That's why when Zhao showed up, I was like, wait, like it's like, oh, you could search around our village. I was like, doesn't Sokka dress up like a Kyoshi warrior? I don't remember if that was a thing or not. I feel like I have a vague memory of him dressing up like a Kyoshi warrior, but maybe that's just from like him training with them, and I just don't remember it. It feels so vaguely familiar. Obviously, like, even if it was an anime series, obviously it's not something they did, but for whatever reason, I thought that's how like Sokka was going to hide himself amongst them as a Kyoshi warrior, but it didn't happen. But my point I was going on that whole diatribe initially beforehand about like the Blue Eye Samurai comparison is when they're training and she kind of like embarrasses Sokka, or it's just like initially like when he's like showing off his weapon, he's like, yeah, that's pretty dope, right? And she uses her fan and slices all the melons. He's like, I mean, that was pretty good. That was pretty good, And she's like, he's like, but we're proficient in hand-to-hand combat, and she gets into a stance. He's like, right now. And she like basically chokes him out. He's like, okay, enough. And he walks away. Because she was almost excited about it, because she was like, yeah. But then he kind of walked away, and she kind of, I think, felt bad. Because she's never interacted. Because it's the thing of, this is someone you've never met before. This is the village you grow up in. It's a small village. It's a community of everyone knows everybody. So you got to experience someone from the outside who has a completely different like background and traditions than you, or just a different lifestyle in general. And so you also found the common ground of, hey, he's a warrior. At least, he tried to approach that whole comparison of, you're a warrior, I'm a warrior. Like I said, I do feel like, especially a lot of their back and forth, Suki and Sokka's was, once again, he was very sexist. People point that out, and in retrospect, I think I talked about it in episode 1. I remember it a little bit, but it's one of those things like, I was like in high school when this show came out. I was like maybe like 15 to 8. No. Maybe like 14 to 17 over the course of the show. And once again, I don't remember a lot. So I'm like, Sokka being super like sexist did not maybe register as much to me back then as it probably would register to me now. So I feel like I vaguely remember like a lot of the like him being like not as recognizing her talents, and you could almost see that male pride ego getting broken when like she kind of stomped him out, and I think she kind of felt bad about it. It's like, oh, like I think she was like enjoying the fun of it because like, hey, we're both warriors. But it was more, it is a warrior's pride, but also the male ego of, man, she stomped me. But later on, he sees her training, and Sokka's like copying the moves outside, and she trains him up. And it just, I love Suki's just kind of like to get your legs where you're supposed to be. She does like your very like Shifu type of master approach of, I'm gonna just kick your legs to be where they're supposed to be. So it's kind of a really cute moment between them. Even her mom's kind of witnessing the bubbling things there, because for her, it's like, I've never been able to leave the island. I never even thought about leaving the island because this is all I've ever known. And then you kind of have someone from the outside spark that interest in you and like, well, what's out there? And that's what she thanks Sokka a lot for that. Like, I would have never even considered leaving my island, But this is where I'm needed. But it's like, the Kyoshi Islands themselves had cut themselves off so much from the world. Let nothing come in, but also we never like venture out. So at the same time this is all going down, Aang, well, once again, it's just also this is our first episode where he does the airball trick, where he gets on his like ball of air and kind of uses it like kind of transport himself around in very classic fashion. That might have been obviously straight out of like the animated series of him like going like riding it and smacking into something. So that's very, very straight out of the animated series for that. But it's like, yeah, he is just a kid, and he gets to have those moments of being a kid, but it's that towing that line of being a kid and having these responsibilities. And he obviously ends up going into the Avatar state. I love that while he's trying to, you have all these things. It's like what Gyatso had said to him, what Sokka had said about him being a coward and stuff like that, all there. And then it goes silent as he's meditating, and he meets Kyoshi, which I was like, I kept thinking the entire time, I'm like, why does the actress who plays Kyoshi sound and seem so familiar? I couldn't quite make her out underneath all that makeup, but also hearing her voice, I was like, she sounds so familiar. It turns out the reason why I'm familiar with her is like the actress who plays Kyoshi is the actress's name is Yvonne Chapman, I believe. Yes, Yvonne Chapman. The thing I best know her from, if you've ever seen the Kung Fu TV show reboot on the CW, she played the pseudo main antagonist for quite a bit of the show, Jilan. Which, they're not one-to-one, but there's a little bit of that Jilan energy she brought to her portrayal of Kyoshi. Like, I know Kyoshi's kind of a little rougher. It's like Kyoshi has the tough love approach amongst the avatars. Because I remember some of his interactions with some of the other avatars with the Avatar State situation, but I don't. I did distinctly remember hers. There's one more I vaguely remember, but I'm not quite sure. But hers like seemed like I vaguely have memories of his interaction with Kyoshi. Like I said, she's kind of the stern warrior. So she like, it's the tough love approach where she kind of rips into Aang, where it's like, oh, you want it to be easy. This isn't going to be easy. Like, you're worried about hurting people. There are people who are going to be hurt. There are people hurt by your decision. You choosing to run away from your responsibility hurt so many people. It's like, as an avatar, you have so many hats that you have to wear. This is my metaphor I'm going with, but she was saying there's so many roles you have to play as guardian, as guide, as kind of peacekeeper and stuff like that. And to do all that, you have to have unparalleled strength. The avatar state will give you it basically every previous avatar's power will channel through you, and it'll be an unparalleled power, but you have to learn how to control it, and it won't be easy, but you have to try, because it's like if you don't fulfill your obligations, there's going to be so much pain, and kind of shows her like what happens to the Northern Warrior tribe. It's like this is what the future holds if you don't do what you need to do, if you do not step up and complete the mission you are set out to do. Because from her perspective, it is a situation of it is unfair, it sucks, but it's like you have to adapt to the situation just like I did. You know, it's not the easiest thing, and yes, you are young, but the fact is you can't use it as an excuse. Your choice to run away from your responsibility once had massive ramifications. You cannot run from your responsibilities again. You have to face them, you have to accept them, and not run away from them. It's not going to be easy. You want it to be easy, and like I said, that's the parallels with Zuko, who wants an easy solution to this thing, just wants to be able to quickly, and he's impatient with it, and Aang is kind of in a similar boat. So Kyoshi channels herself through him. I don't think that happened quite often throughout the original series, if I remember correctly. It happens like every once in a blue moon. The Kyoshi one just sticks out in my head, but I feel like there might have been one or so other times when it happened, when Aang channels another avatar like that. But yeah, Kyoshi showed up and wrecked shop, and you just get to see the beautiful culmination of all four, like earth bending, water, wind, all and fire, all in unison, seeing what the avatar is fully capable of, you know, and is able to kind of put everything and everyone to shame. And it's like, if you can control that power, you've really kind of finally reached the pinnacle of being the avatar. But it's about getting over that fear that Aang has of his power. The only reason why you have such fear of it is because you refuse to take time. You have to learn to control it. There's also the obviously beautiful parallel of, well, Aang needs to start practicing and training for, you know, learning, like I said, the other elements to bend. And obviously Katara got the scroll from her grandmother. It's like, I hid this from you because the Fire Nation would have wiped you out. They are wiping out any benders. Like I said, the next bender in the cycle would have been a water bender, so it makes 100% sense. But also, they're kind of your somewhat natural elemental enemy, so you want to kind of nip that in the bud so there's no other benders that can kind of like even attempt to come after you. You want to wipe them all out in that same boat. But either way, Katara's getting better and better control, but Aang's reluctancy to train was because the only person that he ever trained with was Gyatso, and it's like now that he's gone, he doesn't really know how to train with anyone else, and Katara's going to help in that regard. I mean, that's also another reason to go to the Northern Water Tribe too, is to find someone that can be there to help him master water. There was obviously a lot gained from this experience for everyone. Katara, which we got a little bit of that flashback even more of her mom, and we saw her mom getting burned. So it's like, yes, her mom was a waterbender that was killed. So she's got her own trauma associated with the Fire Nation. Aang doesn't have the direct correlation. It's direct because they're responsible for killing his entire people, but it's also like, once again, that pain and that frustration. And even Sokka, you know, was gaining more as a warrior, like all that stuff that Suki taught him, and he utilized it as they were fighting off against the Fire Nation people. But they ultimately had to leave. But it's like, even the Kyoshi Island gained so much, not just Suki, but everyone. It's like they've learned to learn more about themselves, to be kind of open, and they finally believe in themselves again, when they've kind of like been so separated from everyone, kind of finally gave themselves a chance to breathe and kind of believe in themselves again. And on top of that, they were able to believe in the Avatar and what he can potentially bring, like they can believe in the future again. So like I said, everyone kind of walked away with a lot of lessons in this. Zuko's the one that kind of walked away a little of a screwed over situation because he had no choice but to work with Zhao, because Iroh's kind of like, because Iroh knows like if Zuko causes any problems, like Zhao's, and I guess maybe because Zuko being the disgrace that he is, but it's also that what I meant that Zhao probably has more precedent and power over things than a disgraced Prince Zuko. But I think it's also Iroh wants to mitigate this whole thing. Like, right, as long as we work together, like, you're less likely to kind of stab us in the back. But I think Iroh's like knows, like, no, I got to keep an eye on you too. Which Zhao does let the Fire Lord know about the Avatar's return. So what was supposed to just be Zuko's mission, which he was afraid that would eventually other people would learn about it, it's happened, and now his father has too. So everyone's on the hunt, and it's like if Zuko wants to claim his redemption, his honor back, he has to be the one. But it's like, yeah, it's going to be a moot point if someone else brings in the Avatar besides him. So, but our trio goes forth, like I said, on their mission to head towards the Northern Warrior Tribe, and so we'll see what happens in between now and then. I can only assume, because that's where, spoilers, season 1 of the, or book 1 of the animated series ended. So I'm assuming that that'd have to be the end of this as well. So I'm curious about some of the stories we get in between. There's at least one I'm aware of, because it's fundamental, because it's tied to Aang, and, you know, once again, tied to a friend of Aang's and stuff. So I know that's going to be, because I've seen, like, shots of that storyline. But it's going to be interesting to see what other things pop up, like I said, because I've forgotten so much. It's going to be interesting to see what comes back to me as we progress through this season. I'm excited to see where all this takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.